this is going to go. Thank you, Kyle. We had a bet. We talked openly about death, about accepting Christ, about heaven. And we had this bet that if she passed away first, I would say something nice at her funeral. If I passed away first, she'd say something nice at mine. She won. And the reason it's hard not to get emotional is because of the people and the things I've heard. The other day, working, checked my phone, I've been a couple hours, I got 20 texts. I don't get 20 texts in a week. All condolences about them. And it's those things. So I got home last night, 8 or 10 cards on the kitchen table, more. The whole kitchen island there was just full of cards. And so even though we knew all about Mom and how good she was and all the good she done, well, this last week has just been overwhelming. And we all know why. I want to tell you, most of you took most of my content, and that's good. I have a couple things that nobody knows here. And it's what she did for me when I was young. And it's not about me. Believe me, that's why I don't even want to say it. It's what she did for me that nobody knows. And one of them was when I was 13 years old. I was a shy farm boy. Hardly been out of Weetona or Springfield. And I was going to the junior high, going to Troy. I knew nobody. I was a farm boy. I wanted to be there running and hitching up that wagon for Dad. That's it. And I was scared to death. And she knew I was going to struggle, as I did in first grade when I cried and cried and cried. She had to come and get me many times. And here's what she did. She signed me up for pump, pass, and kick contest at Alabama. She signed me up for it. I have no idea why. But she told me I was going to go, and I fought it terribly. She might have seen me out in the yard throwing a football around, whatever. But she saw that in the paper, and she signed me up for pump, pass, and kick at Alabama. And she dragged me there. I knew nobody. All town kids. I was a farm boy over here that didn't know anybody and scared out of my mind. All I had to do was go up to that line and throw, punt, and pass, and kick that football. And there was at least a dozen kids there. And I took second.
Wow.
How? I don't know. Brian Fleming won it. He went on to nationals. He was on TV in front of at a Buffalo Bills game. So why am I telling you this story? That's just what Mom did. Deep down in her, she knew what you needed. The words you needed, the encouragement you needed at the time. She had an innate ability. And if I was to ask her why you did it today, you know what she'd say? She's because that's just what you do. Yeah. That's what she'd say. Now, does that mean anything, that pump, pass, and kick? No, but I was in my office 2 days ago. This is where it gets hard. And I'm pondering what to talk about. I look up on the shelf, and here's this little silver trophy. This little silver man sitting here like this. Second place. 1975. Pump, pass, and kick. You don't think that's special to me? That dumb little trophy. And I saw it the other day. And I had to tell that story. Another thing. Military. She was very proud of her brothers. Very proud. Bob, Don, Joe. And she talked about when she was 9 years old. And they would hover around that radio, her and her family. They had nothing. And can you imagine 3 of your sons getting drafted and going overseas in World War II? And she talked with emotion about what that was like for her mom and her dad and her as a 9-year-old girl. Powerful. And she talked about it often throughout the years, right up until just the last year or two. What did that do for our family? It instilled pride of our military, the horrification of war, what that flag means, patriotism, freedom. I didn't go in the military, my dad didn't either. But because of that and those three brothers that all made it home safe, and she talked about sitting at that radio with her parents, listening to every word on the edge of their seats for what was going to happen in the war next. They're the things I remember. And another story, when she was a young girl, saddle shoes were very popular at that time. And they had nothing. And her mom and dad scrimped and saved to buy her a pair of saddle shoes. The girls in town were wearing a certain kind. And when Mom opened them at Christmas, and they weren't that, they were a different kind. And Mom threw a fit about it. You know what her mom did? Her mom took those saddle shoes and she went over to the wood stove and she said, "Are you going to wear them?" And my mom said no. Dropped them right in the fire. Now why would I tell that story? Values. Appreciation. We're a country and a nation that is spoiled above and beyond our wildest dreams. So every time when we complain about something, I would think about that analogy, that powerful analogy that Mom said, just by that simple story of those saddle shoes. It's incredible. Now to try to lighten it up a little bit, Mom and Dad, they argued over how they met. Jackie, Yvonne, you can probably clean this up what I'm about to say, but Mom said that the Troy baseball team would come over to SRU and they'd walk through the halls and they'd look in the windows of the girls. Dad said that the SRU softball team would come and they'd walk through the halls and look through the windows of the Troy boys. But regardless, one thing I do know, Mom took a beating over the years from us Troy boys. She got picked on pretty good. And what topped it all off one year was going to the Troy Fair. We're pulling down into Outbound Park and there's a girl with an SRU jacket on headed to Troy. So we picked on her pretty good about that. But a funeral is something to think about. A lot of analogies, a lot of history, and one that just popped in my mind at big time was the fact that Mom knew nothing about farming. And she in 1951 married Dad and came to Mount Glen Farm. 72 years ago. 72 years. You know, when you think about those things, it's just incredible. I went through a very difficult time in my life 30 years ago. I went through a divorce that was very difficult and painful. Guess who was there for me? Guess who had my back more than anybody? Mom didn't have the skill set or the experience to help me through a divorce. But she knew who did. His name was George DeRay, and he lived right over there. And she made sure George comforted me, tutored me, mentored me. I come to know Christ through George DeRay, and he changed my life. He changed my life. Mom made it happen. Her card ministry, we talked about it a lot. Every time I went down to see her, she talked about somebody in the paper either going through a very good time or a difficult time, and she'd say, "Can you give me their address? Can you give me their address?" Because she was fiercely motivated to encourage people, both in good times and bad. Songs and poems. I was fortunate to be able to hear her. She read through her book. She had 42, I think it is, in that book, Kathy. Poems and songs that she wanted somebody to have in the family that could do something with them. Reading them today was precious. That's just an example. Just had that ability to write poems, and they were read in all kinds of different venues around the area. We all know that. She even tried to teach me how to yodel. But that didn't go so well. I made her laugh. The kitchen band at the manor, When she went to the manor here just a few weeks ago, she walked in the door and people recognized her and greeted her and welcomed her that remembered her playing in the kitchen band years before COVID, and also helped her with her rehab on her knees. So that was huge to make that transition when she went to the manor, that those folks remembered her and were very glad to see her and help her. The Wednesday ladies, what else can I say? Wednesday widows, Wednesday warriors, all kinds of stories. One story that did not get told is they sometimes acted like kids. When they got their straws, they would take the end out and they'd blow straw paper blowing all over. And
She started it.
Cause a ruckus. Sue, I think you started.
She did.
But precious, you folks, what all you did for Mom all those years. Keep that going. Church family, Mom brought me to church here when I was a kid, when it wasn't fun to come to church. I won't go any farther than that. She'd come home crying from church, but she kept coming. She kept coming and she prayed that me and my siblings would marry godly people, godly husbands and wives. She prayed a lot. And as that one country and western song goes, sometimes those prayers get through. What a wonderful church family she experienced with Windfall, Big Time. You people are incredible, and incredible blessings for Mom and Dad and many others. And all of us are watching. Our communities, they're all watching us. Thank you. And in closing, I'd like to talk about the scripture in Mom. Galatians 5:22 and 23, the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, long-suffering. Which of those did Mom not do? She did them all really well. And so that is one of my calling cards and one of my scriptures that I think about with Mom. And as Alice plays Because He Lives, an all-time great classic song. It is Mom's song. And today it's our song. Because she loved that song. Written over 50 years ago by Bill and Gloria Gaither. Listen to the words of this song when we sing it here. And I got a story to tell you about. September 30th last year, I got Mom to sit at the piano right after her 90th birthday, and I recorded her playing and singing this song. All three verses. Precious, precious, look back on her. I wish I had it right up here on video for everybody to see. So that was our song, Mom and I. Even when I couldn't sing, we sang. And here's the really tough part. I'm going to share something with you that I've only shared with just 3 or 4 people. About our last visit to the manor. Friday night, 4 days before she passed. The last 3 times I've been down there, she didn't know. And I didn't. She was asleep, and I didn't wake her. Becca and I went to see her. And we went to wake her. A period of time went by, and all of a sudden she looked right up and she said, "Dean! Becca!" And remember, the last 3 times I visited her, she did not know me. And we were stunned. And I thought, I got to do something. I remembered her left ear is better. I went right over to her left ear, right to her ear, and I started singing this song. Because He Lives. she joined right in with me. We were stunned, Rebecca and I. We just were overcome with emotion. We stopped, but she kept right on going with this song, the first verse. And it was an incredible, powerful moment. And after a few seconds, she faded. And I knew that would be the last words ever out of her mouth. It would be the last conversation we ever had. And it was. So as we sing this song, think about Mom, because that's her song. Today it's our song. Think about the words and what they mean.